Narnach here. Welcome back to the Human Resource Machine. So last episode we worked on the digit exploder and I managed to get a solution that had the required numbers of instructions. I couldn't optimize the number of runtime cycles. I managed to shave off a little bit. I went from 198 to 184, but I'm still off the goal of 165. So if you have a solution for that or a hint or something, I am more than welcome to it. But this episode is going to be about the re-coordinator. Let's see what it does. Pawn to b6. And check. And mate. Yes, I win again. I find the game is most enjoyable when playing against the best player I know. Myself. I knew he was gonna say that. So tell me more. What's the secret to being a practically perfect person? Yes, I like to remember the 4 P's. Proper planning prevents problems. Yes, now we know. But it's all about the execution. Each number in the inbox is an address of a tile on the floor. Send to the outbox the coordinates of that tile. Column first, row second. For example, an address of 6 has coordinates, so this is address 6, has coordinates 2, 1. You may ask your boss for more examples. Okay, ask the boss for more examples. That's clearly what it says. If your inbox is 15.2, your outbox should be 3320. Of course, because 15 is here. And it's at 3 and 3. And 2 is at is there. So it's gonna be at 1 and 0. Or 2 and 0. I say. So I'm assuming this 0, 4 over here is not by accident. So let's think about this. This 11. It basically describes this one. So you would count out how many steps it is to the right and then down. What's in the reverse? So 6 is 2, 0. Okay, so it's X, Y. So first we count this, then we count that. So there's basic coordinates. That's good to know that it's sane in that regard. So let's have a look. The easiest way is to probably just copy the 0 and then just keep copying over the numbers. So 0, 1, 2. The other hand, for 6, you probably need to decompose it. Also, one of the example they gave is 15, so you're not even sure that the numbers that are on here are safe. So maybe the trick is in actually adding things. This is an interesting one. Definitely fascinated. So 11, we have to go send out 3. And then we have to send out 2. So it will be 2 values. You can't just add all the numbers in, or for example, it needs to have multiple values. Also, this is where it gets interesting. Let's say we bombard this one to the pointer. Just for the sake of argument. Let's say this is the pointer. Okay, so let's say we store the number in there. We take the number, we store it in the pointer. Okay, so if we then say, okay, read whatever the pointer is pointing at then we would point this one to tile 11. So that's how we solve that bit. So then we first need to make sure that tile 11 contains the number 3. Also, this one contains 4, which is not actually part of the range, and it's just overflowing. So maybe this is intended to be the pointer. So let's, for now, use this as the pointer. I don't actually see a reason why 4 should be in here, so this is probably the one it should be. So we copy it to the pointer, and then we need to point at something. So before we can do that, we first need to set up the board. First, basically, we need to set up the x coordinates, send that out, and then we need to set up the y coordinates and send that out. Okay. So let's do that. First, we set up the x coordinates. So that's this row of data. So we copy from 0. Let's actually call this 0, 0. And I know my handwriting is still terrific. We copy it from 0 and we copy it to here. Okay, this is 0, 0. That's good. Then we copy it to 1. At which point we bump it. We copy it to... actually, we know there are some certain properties that this entire row is going to be 0. So we copy it to 0, but we can also copy it to 4, we can copy it to 8, and we can copy it to 12. After that, we are done with the zeros, then we need to put in a 1. So we copy the 0 to 1. We bump it, and then we can copy the value, because after we bump it we have the number in our hand, so 1 is on the floor, 1 is in our hand, and we can just copy it to the rest of the row. So we copy it to 5, we can copy it to 9, we can copy it to 13. Okay, then we copy it to up here, and then it needs to be a 2, so we bump it again. Then we have the 2 in our hands, so we can copy it to 6, we can copy it to 10. Then next row, that one, we bump it, we bump that one, and then we copy the number to the remaining 2 sectors. Okay, so that's a lot of setup. So yeah, this is the board initialization for X. Then we can actually read the value. So this is let's see, this is okay, I also call this X. So this is X setup, set X, of is prepare for X, so prep X. So we set up the board here, and then here we actually do something with X. So we copy the value, the pointer value that our pointer is pointing at. So in this case 11, pointing at here. And it will be containing the X value, which is going to be 3. Okay, and then we outbox it. Yay, we've sent out the X coordinate. Then we need to rewire the board to contain all the Y values. So, X on here is 3, but for down it's a 2. So we need to rewire the board. So that's going to be fun. So, now we have prep Y. And I'll be amazed if this isn't the way to do it, but for now, brute forcing it is always a good way to start with the solution. So we know 0 is always 0 is always going to be 0. Thing is, the rest of the board is going to be different. So we can copy from 0, and then we just copy it to the rest of the row. So copy there, copy it there. So this is going to be 0, then this one is going to be a 1. So we get over there, and then we need to bump it, and then we can copy that one over there, and there, and there. Then this row is filled. Then we need to move over to the next row, this one, and then we need to bump it again. Okay, now we have a 2 in our hands, and then we can copy that over to here, and there. How did that sub get in? I think I added a sub instead of a copy. Okay, so yep, need to round out the last row. Need to bump it again, and then we copy it one more time. And I'm assuming that the 2 values that were initially set to be empty are actually just kept empty on purpose, so there will not be any values assigned, and the input here actually does seem to indicate that is the case. Okay, so we have now rewired the board, so we can actually send out the y value. So we prepared for y, and then we do the same thing again. So we copy from whatever the pointer is pointing at, and we outbox it. And then we are done. So we can go all the way back to the beginning. Yes. And we take another value from the inbox. We completely reset the board, basically by setting up X again. And then we go through. This should work, and I'll be surprised if this is efficient. Am I pointing? Oh, I still had this copy from stuck in here. Silly me. Okay, so reset the board. Seems to work all right. So far so good. Okay, your solution works with those specific inputs, but it fails on other possible inputs. Yes, here, I'll give you some inputs that cause your solution to fail, so you can see it for yourself. Okay. Next up. Okay, so 15, 14, 15. Okay. I say. Okay, so the assumption that these 2 numbers were somehow sacred, so to say, they don't hold up. That's a bummer. Okay, so let's keep this as a solution. I'll move over to the next one. I can paste it if I want to, but first just take a step back and analyze it again. So is there a way to set up the board once? Or do it in a different way? So my pointer solution basically is naive. Okay, so this 4 here, I was assuming it was in here to indicate that, no, it's an overflow. There is no number 4, so you don't need to use it, so this is a safe place to put it. On the other hand, they might be giving me a tool here to use a modulus operation. So modulus is basically a tool to remove multiples of a number. So, for example, modulus 4. If you have 10, if you divide 10 by 4, you could say, well, okay, 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. So if you do 2.5 times 4, you have 10 again. It's very basic math. But that's assuming you can divide a number into something that's smaller than 1, into fractions, say. The thing is, if you apply pure integer math, if you only work with full numbers, then you cannot properly divide 10 by 4. Because, no, if you have 10, you take off 4, it leaves you with 6, take off 4 again, leaves you with 2. The last remaining 2 you cannot properly divide because, you know, failing to come up with a proper analogy here. It's probably, whatever. So the remainder will be 2. So 10 divided by 4, you will basically be able to fit 4 in twice, and you will have a remainder of 2. So the modulus operation, it calculates that remainder. On the other hand, you want to know how many times you've devised. So I think this is just a visual reminder, because this is the board. You need to calculate everything. So rather than taking my very naive approach of just labeling the numbers and counting, we actually need to do a little bit of math here, which is actually, no, solving the problem once, then getting the reminder, well, okay, sure, you can actually not rely on anything to be sacred. We get a better solution from this. So 15, that's over here. So if you think back to the modulus thing, we are, how many times can we divide 15 by 4? Well, 3 times. So first time, second time, third time. If you do 3 times 4, you got 12. That leaves you with 3. So we could say, well, the number of times we can divide it properly is how far we go down, and the remainder is how far we go to the right. And that actually also happens to be the number that we need to send out in that order. So what we can actually do is we just take the value. We store it. Let's store it here for now. Okay, so this is the actually let's copy it to the one next to it. So we call this y, and we call this x. Well, actually we need to go down, so it's in reverse. Okay, so x and y. Okay, so I'm trying to not confuse myself too many here. I mean, x is to the right, that y is to that side. So this is going to be the remainder. So we just store it in here. Okay. So we need to copy from 0 and put it in the y. Okay. So we start with 15 and 0. Well, then we are going to check how many times we can take off y from x. So we copy the value from x. We subtract 4. If it's a negative, we have subtracted too many. Then we're done. Otherwise, we go back. So basically, this is very much like the previous problem where we had to break a number down into multiples of 10 and 100 and then calculate the remainder. Basically, we're doing the same here, but with 0 and 4 rather than with 0, 10 and 100. So we take the value. We subtract, well, this is just going to be, so just going to call it 4. And we're just going to call this one 0. So we take 4 off. If that's a negative, then we know we have subtracted too many. So we can just safely move over and just output the numbers. If that's not the case, then we can bump y. But before we do that, we need to actually copy the value back to x. So we have x, we take 4 off. If that doesn't make it negative, then we copy it back. and we are good. After that we bump Y to indicate that we have subtracted 4 one time from this. And then after that we go back to here, we read X again. So just let's walk through it in our heads. We put 15 in. Actually we can show that. Let's focus on wrapping it up and then we just step through it to actually show you. It's a bit complicated, but it will actually work out. So once we are done, then we can just say, well, copy value from X, outbox it, copy the value from Y, and we outbox it, and then we go back all the way to the beginning. And indeed we need X and then Y, so this should be a working solution. So let's start. Just manually step through. We take a number from the inbox, we store it into X, then we copy the value 0 and we store it in Y. Okay, that's the first step. Now we take the value from X, we subtract 4. That's still a positive number. It's not below, it's not negative, so we skip the jump. Then we store the value. And we bump Y to indicate that we subtracted the 4 one time. So then we go back, we take the value from X again, we subtract another 4. 7 is still positive, so we continue. So once again we chalk up a +1 to Y. Then we go back, we take 7 again, subtract 4. Okay, this is now 3, still positive. So we need to indicate that this one has been bumped. Okay, so 3 and 3. That's actually 15. If you remember, 15 was our input number. So 3, 3 is now the coordinates that we are pointing to. But you know that, I know that, but this little guy here doesn't know because all he knows is how to follow the recipe. So he needs to go through one more time. He copies the value from X. He subtracts 4. And that's going to be a negative number. And that's the exit condition because he subtracted too much. So he can now exit. And the nice thing is, because he holds the number in his hand, what's written here is not affected. And now we are properly just sending off the values. So we take the X value and we send it out. And then we take the Y value and we send it out. And then we can just let him do his thing, increase speed a bit. And that's it. This is the smart way to do it, rather than the very brittle, less efficient way to do it. Okay, so 1 instruction too many, and 6 cycles too many. Let's see if we can shake those out. So we copy this, because this is clearly a better solution than what we had before. And we paste it. Okay, so I'm doing one thing too many, basically. That's yes. This whole thing with outputting jumps in the end. I mean, we are executing a jump here. If it's negative, that's our exit condition. So what if we just put that there and then have this jump over here? And then we can just send the output logic up here. And that's always a very quick gain. Because you're making the jump here anyway. The jump of negative. You're making it anyway to get to the exit code. So rather than having this jump at the end execute every time we need to output numbers, we only need to do it once in the beginning. So 4 numbers in, so we save ourselves 4 jumps from the end, but in addition we get 1 back. So we make it 3 cycles faster. So the 86, I believe it was, now becomes 83. I don't think we are there quite yet, but we are getting closer. Also, we didn't actually save ourselves 1 cycle, but 17 of 82 became 79. So we need to shave 3 cycles off and we need to get 1 instruction out. Usually that means there is something in the loop that is slightly off. And oftentimes it's the entry condition into the loop, that's gonna be different. But in this case, there's not really a lot of duplication going on. I mean, let's see, we read the value, we store it in X, we copy the 0 value and we put it in Y, because we want to clear it. Then we read the X value again. Oh, we could potentially say, we reverse this. So we start with blanking out Y, then we grab a value from the inbox and put it in X. And then that way we already end up with X in our hands. So there's no need to initially do it, but we can do it in the end. Meh. So that way we save ourselves one instruction at the beginning of the loop. I'm not quite sure if this is gonna improve anything. Still, we actually haven't saved ourselves any instructions, so we still need to optimize by cutting out one instruction somewhere. And arguably, once you're done, you still need to do the copy from and the copy to before you grab the inbox, so it might not even be faster. Well, it saved 2 cycles, so we're now down to 77. So we need to save off one instruction and 1 speed cycle. Light bulb. So originally I was gonna wonder about another 4 minutes and be all confused about it before giving up and settling at being 1 instruction off and 1 cycle off. But I said something to the effect of there is no duplication in this loop. But actually there is. Copy to X. Halfway through the loop there is a copy to X. So the nice thing about a loop is that you can rearrange things inside of the loop. So originally we have a copy to X. Okay, then we subtract 4. Then we jump with negative, then we do copy to X again. And afterwards we do a copy from X, which means we're holding X in our hands, we go back. So rather than having a copy to X, we could just say, well, we're just jumping straight here, but then we miss out on these 2 instructions. Copy to and copy to, there. At least I can do this, copy to X. Then it means I need to restructure the logic. That's basically, that's the main gist of it. So what if we have a loop here that just keeps going and going and going? So you could say, well, if we say, okay, after copy to X we want to go to sub 4, and inside of this loop we want to rearrange things. So we could say, okay, well, after copy from X we do a sub 4, so we just shift things around a little bit. Okay, that means we need to adjust where we jump into the loop, because after this copy from X we need to do a sub 4. Okay, so we have a jump here, which now has a jump with negative at the beginning. Well, we can also shift that around. Nothing is really counting on it, so that's we can just move it there. Okay. So again, we have this. We now have a copy to X here, and we have a copy to X here. We can just shift things around. Also, we're now using 16 instructions, but there are 2 copy to X's over here. Okay, so what if we drop this one and we drop this one? So inbox, we copy it to X, boom. Okay, so then the next thing we do is we bump Y. So this becomes increased. Then we read X again. We subtract 4. And if it's negative, we know we are done. Keep in mind, we bumped Y before subtracting X. So Y is 1 more than it ought to be. But X is still good because we haven't actually written the value out yet. So we can go up here. And X is good, so we can just send it out. Boom. Y, however, we need to decrement by 1. So we can do this. We can do a bump negative by 1 on Y. The nice property of bump negative is that you take the value, you subtract 1, you store it on the floor, but you also hold a copy. So the value is actually going to be good. So in this case, if we run it, this solution will qualify for the 14 instructions. And because we are executing one less step in total, we should be under the required number of steps as well. Okay, I was right about this, I wasn't right about that. Curious. Let's have a quick look. Is that because I rearranged the loop here? Because you would expect it not to matter that much the order in which I execute things. Especially because we have less instructions to execute. Or is it because we are executing more redundant steps in case we are done? Because we are still bumping Y even though we don't have to. Because normally if you the order of things is slightly different. So now if we have the number 1, for example, which is the moment it's put in, it's already done, because we don't need to bump Y because it's on the first row, and X here, the number 1 already is perfect, so to say, so it doesn't need any work. So if you have 1, let's see, we jump over, we 0 Y, then we read the inbox, then we copy it to X. At that point it's done. So what are the extra instructions we do? We bump Y, we read X, we subtract 4, and then we have a negative jump. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then we have a jump. So there's 2 extra steps, and that happens multiple times, which causes the inefficiency. So ideally you don't want to do this, but in order to qualify for the 14 instructions, this is what you have to do to make it work. Hello again. So once again, after editing, I had another flash of insight. So this was 85 instructions, not 84. And I was expecting this to be faster than it should be, but well, I'm lowering cycle count usually, for instruction count, so usually that means you have a less efficient solution. So actually, if I reverse that logic, this one is at 77. I was trying to hit 2 birds with this 1 stone, because I was trying to go for low instructions. I just needed to shave 1 off, but I also needed to shave 1 runtime cycle off, and I was trying to solve both with the same solution. The thing is, I can actually easily solve this runtime problem by duplication. Yes. So we have a jump here, and in my previous solution to basically get this copy to X out, I was saying something again to the effect of, well, hey, you can just shuffle things around inside of the loop, because basically this jump makes it as if, for example, we have another sub 4, and then we have another jump if negative, and then we have another copy to X, and we have another bump Y, and then another copy from X, and then I think I have actually copied everything. Yeah. So this is a divider. So this is the first run through the loop, and normally you would jump back here. But if I just copy the instructions that are here, that's the exact same thing as if jumping back. Only the thing is, I don't do a jump. I add instructions, but I increase runtime efficiency by cutting out a single jump. So if we do a runtime now, it will actually be fast enough. Ta-da! And you can actually get the number down even further by just copying the loop more times until it no longer makes sense. And I think the most times you would need to do it is, you'd only divide by 4, 1, 2, 3 times. So 1, 2. If I do it one more time, then that's going to be the most efficient it will ever be. So let's go for a perfect solution, so to say. Well, insofar as perfect solutions are possible, because there might be just a different approach to the problem that will be more efficient. Well, in this case, it's about the general idea. So copy to X, we bump Y, and then we copy from X again. And then we have a perfect copy of what we had over there. So this should be slightly faster. So this is a very good indication of the trade-off between less cycles and higher runtime speed, or using more cycles to decrease your runtime speed by basically duplicating more code. So it was 72 instructions and at the expense of 25 instructions there. So it turns out we did manage to get a perfect solution for the recoordinator. I just had to go to the edit mode a couple more times. So once again, I thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye.